So the best way of describing it is a schoolboy with a magnifying glass. So it concentrates the light onto a small focal point on the meristem, the growing point of the weed, and delivers a small pulse of energy, which is enough to kill the weed.
You can think about the bioeconomy as really a subset of the economy where we're leveraging the tools, the processes, the products that nature has already given us and optimizing these for economic outputs. One of my favorite examples of the bioeconomy is this idea of upcycling or valorizing a waste stream or a side stream. And the idea here is that you're taking the byproduct of a food process and using that byproduct, which would normally be discarded, taking it and leveraging biology to then upcycle this waste stream into a valuable output, in this case, bioethanol. This has not only led us to develop crops that are more self-sufficient, more self-sustaining, but at the same time it's enabled our capacity to grow and produce food. The bioeconomy is all around us, whether that be through agricultural, through industrial practices, through consumer goods. And the question is, how can we increasingly harness that to deliver better outcomes across the value chain and really help us grow into a more resilient economy that's serving everyone? No matter how much technology is converging around the bioeconomy, it's still rooted in science. And with science, there's always going to be an empirical aspect there. Humans, workers, will always be a really central component to the bioeconomy. We can't just envision a commercial bioeconomy practice and then will it into being. It really takes people on the ground developing these tools, developing these practices manually, day in, day out, understanding empirically which of these solutions is going to meet the demands at a commercial scale. Even though there's been a flurry of activity here, we're still only seeing a very small portion of GDP for each of these nations corresponding to the bioeconomy. And so at the World Economic Forum, together with our partners, we are highly focused on this idea of bringing these national strategies to life. We've actually been able to collaborate with various regions, for instance, our center in Serbia, to really support them in spinning up their regional bioeconomy, whether that be through events or the legislation that they're passing that's really focused on delivering better outcomes for their population.
In the Amazon, you can actually show that regenerating forests through agroforestry, where you're producing food forests and restoring ecosystems and bringing back endangered species and helping create more diversity in a degraded forest or a secondary forest, that actually is not only helping to regenerate those systems of life, but it's actually more profitable than cutting it down for cattle ranching. The Amazon system is actually what feeds the economy of the continent. Scientists estimate that 70% of the continent's GDP, South America's GDP, is nourished by Amazon rain, dependent on Amazon rain. The forests are key to that hydroclimatic system. We lose the forest, we lose the economy. 1 hectare of forest devoted to agroforestry or conservation or restoration is able to generate way more income than a hectare of cattle ranching or a mine that leaves after 30 years, leaving behind huge environmental contamination. The Sacred Headwaters is really working to transform our life-blind economic system, putting life at the center of what we do, protecting the ecosystems, restoring ecosystems, promoting the regeneration of destroyed ecosystems, and creating economies that actually are more profitable as well as benefit more people for a longer period of time, that are based on standing forests. Many of the people were entrenched political interests in the logging, in the mining, in the cattle ranching, in the agribusiness, in the dam building, in the pipelines. Those entrenched interests are holding back the collective interest of all of us and future generations. Many of the countries in the Amazon are burdened by their external debts. They borrowed money over the years. They're paying through compounded interest 10x of what they originally borrowed and still can't get out of the burden of that debt. They mortgage their rainforest in order to just pay the interest on the debt. For example, in Ecuador, the debt burden is so huge that Ecuador uses most of the revenues it generates from mining and oil just to pay the interest on the debt. So what do we need? We need debt relief. We need debt cancellation at scale, conditioned on commitments by countries in the Amazon to protect their forests, to restore their forests, and to transition to a bioeconomy that's regenerative. We also need investment policies and also supply chains that are deforestation-free. Europe has made a huge stride by adopting policies on deforestation-free commodities. That needs to expand globally. We need to make sure that the soy you purchase, or the beef you consume, or the gold that you buy doesn't come from deforestation. And that kind of supply chain regulations need to be expanded globally. We then also need to call on investors to have deforestation-free investment portfolios and investment policies.